Celiac disease, or gluten enteropathy, is the inability to digest gluten. This triggers an autoimmune response resulting in inflammation of the villi of the small intestine. Gluten are large chains of amino acids made up of gliadin and glutenin. When someone with celiac disease consumes foods containing gluten, they end up with excess gluten in their small intestine. When macrophages detect these excess glutens in the small intestines, they engulf them, break them up, and display single protein antibodies on the exterior. These are detected by T cells from the immune system of the human body, and they attach to these single protein antibodies and begin to target the gluten molecules in the small intestine. Then these T cells call in more T cells that also attack small particles of glutenin and gluten that have been absorbed by the villi of the small intestine, harnessed in the mucosal tissue. So those T cells then begin to attack the glutenin and gluten as well as the mucosal tissue, causing the villi to inflame, reducing the amount of absorption area, resulting in malabsorption, which means you're unable to absorb H2O, iron, and fats, which results in malnutrition of someone who has celiac disease and consumes products containing gluten.
When you eat gluten, it's too large to pass through the linings of the small intestine, so it must be digested. It breaks down into glutenin and gliadin, and the gliadin is what gets absorbed in the intestinal lining. The gliadin, once it enters the lining of the intestine, is broken down by transglutaminase, which breaks down the amino acids on the gliadin. Once this happens, the deaminated gluten can be used by the rest of the body for the nutrients it provides.
Celiac disease does not occur in any particular age group and can occur at any point in life. Statistics show that 1 in every 100 people are affected by celiac disease. Those with a family history of celiac disease have an increased risk in which they have a 1 in 10 chance of carrying the disease. Signs and symptoms of gluten intolerance and celiac disease include bloating, abdominal cramping, gas and diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, fever, fatigue, weight loss, and malnutrition. The underlying dangers of celiac disease come from those who do not portray any of the signs and symptoms of celiac disease. Prolonged damage to the villi in the small intestine from the consumption of gluten can cause issues such as lymphoma, anemia, osteoporosis, intestinal bleeding, and a small bowel obstruction. Those who have complications with some of the common symptoms celiac disease sufferers usually have, along with those who have a family history of celiac disease, should regularly be screened for the disease since the intolerance to gluten can occur at any point in life. Screening for celiac disease is a simple process that begins at your local clinic. Lab work is the first indicator that you may carry the disease. Because celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, which means the body attacks itself, lab work is done in order to test for antibodies that are found in the bloodstream when the body ingests gluten. IgA-TTG, immunoglobulin A, IgA, anti-tissue transglutamase TTG antibody, and also the IgA-EMA, immunoglobulin anti-endomysial antibody EMA. Upper gastrointestinal endoscopy may then be performed to look for inflammation in the small intestine along with abnormalities of the villi found in the small intestine. An upper gastrointestinal endoscopy is a process where a small tube is inserted through the mouth, which then travels down the esophagus, through the stomach, and into the small intestine. It is then stopped at the duodenum, where samples of the small intestine and the villi are taken in order to test for abnormalities. If tests come back positive for celiac disease, a strict gluten-free diet is then ordered by the physician. This diet is the only form of treatment for celiac disease, which only prevents the symptoms from occurring.
Gluten-free foods used to be hard to find, but now it seems like every supermarket we go to, we see them all over the place. In a study done by a university in Canada, they found that on average, gluten-free foods were 242% more expensive than gluten-containing foods. The gluten-free market is worth almost $2 billion in the US, and all this shows is that manufacturers are clearly targeting the uninformed dieters that think gluten-free foods will make them healthier or help them lose weight.
The most common foods that contain gluten are pastas, breads, flour and wheat, gravy, sauces, and soup. Alternatives to gluten would be rice, corn maize, soy, and nut flour.
In conclusion, the reason why gluten-free diets is a pseudoscience is because the marketing and media have portrayed this as being a fad diet, which is a diet that fails to recognize the negative health effects that can arise. Going on a gluten-free diet is only beneficial to those who have a pre-existing condition. Marketers are making a tremendous amount of money on these foods just by labeling them as gluten-free. Therefore, they want people to believe in this diet as being beneficial to their health by labeling it as a low-carb, low-calorie diet. However, along with the long-term conditions listed before, those on gluten-free diets tend to lack vitamins B9, B12, D, A, E, and K, and also lack iron, calcium, niacin, and fiber.